1959, invigorated Delbo went up to Ilion and said, you have to be part of this union. And in a nutshell, let me tell you what happens. In 1963, Larry Ilion, who was living right here on Polar Street, he was president of the Filipino-American community in Stockton. You guys all listening? Because what's sad is that Union City just named a school after him and his own hometown doesn't know who he is. So please listen. Larry Ilion was then hired by the AWOC to go down to Delano. And in 1965, his workers voted to go on strike. September 8, 1965. And that was the Delano Great Strike. Larry Ilion, resident of Stockton, organizer here in Stockton, member of Trinity Presbyterian Church, former community president, was down in Delano and began one of the most important social movements the globe has ever known. And the tragedy is that we do not know who he is. Union City just named a middle school after him. And when 10 years ago, when we went to SUSD and we said, we want a school named after Larry Ilion, they said, who? And we should all be ashamed of ourselves as Filipinos in Stockton if we don't know not just a hero of our hometown, but a hero for the world. Because Larry Ilion, after the Filipinos go on strike in Delano, goes to his old friend Dolores Huerta because they had known each other from where? Yes! They had gone to St. Mary's Church together, they had organized together, and they began the UFW from those roots that they had here in Stockton. Larry Ilion was the architect of the Great Boycott. He was one of the savviest, most militant and progressive Filipinos. And Rudy Delbo and Larry Ilion should be people that we know, that we learn about here in our public schools. The tragedy is that I and Dylan had to leave Stockton to know this history. San Francisco, when I asked them, I did my first launch there on Wednesday, the whole room knew who Larry Ilion was. The whole room. And they said, yes, he is the father of the Great Strike, and he came from Stockton. All right? If there's one thing that you learned from my book, it's about Larry Ilion and how important it is that we have a street or a school that is named after him. Yes, it's important that we have a Cesar Chavez Public Library, but if it was not for Larry Ilion, Stocktonian, who went up to Cesar Chavez and said, if you don't join the Filipinos in this strike, we're going to scab on you. This is the moment that we have to come together and began the most important social movement of our time. Now, I'm going to end with just a few more quotes, but the tragedy of Little Manila, I mean, here it is, it's birthing some of the most important social movement leaders of the time. The city earmarks it for demolition. Carmen Saldivar owns the Stockton Pool Hall. How many of you ever remember going to the Stockton Pool Hall in the Medial Barbershop? This is what she said about what Little Manila looked like in the 60s. I was so happy that people walking around were all Filipinos. When I look at the street from the shop, my goodness, it looks like the Philippines. All the buildings there are Filipinos, standing there, living there, talking there. Well, 9 blocks are destroyed by redevelopment. The Crosstown Freeway comes in, and a new generation of leaders emerges to give us the Filipino Center. And that is the last part of the book. And I know Uncle Jose Bernardo is here. Is Uncle Jose Bernardo here? And Uncle Ted Lapus is here. In 1967, and this is the last part of the book, those two community leaders walked around Little Manila and they began a movement for the Filipino Center. The Filipino Center is important because it's the first Filipino-American affordable housing and retail project in the nation. And it started here in Stockton. Other cities have a Filipino Center 25 years after we did. And it was because Ted Lapus and Jose Bernardo and activists in this room, like Alma Alcala, like Luna Jamero, like many of you in this room, fought for this Filipino Center. And so I want to honor them. And this is an important place for us to think about our history. So I'm going to end with just reading the last part of my epilogue, and then I'm going to start signing books. As we dig in our heels and fight to save Little Manila's last residents and buildings, I realize clearly that our campaign is not just a struggle to preserve what's left of our community. Our campaign to remember, reclaim, and revitalize Little Manila is part of a historic and ongoing struggle to create and sustain a Filipino-American community. The struggle over these buildings, the struggle over this neighborhood is about justice. It's about economic power. It's about political power. So what I'm saying to you is that I didn't just write this book because I wanted to honor my grandparents and my parents, and especially my father and my grandmother who helped me write this book, but so that we are all inspired to make this a better world in their memory.